Hi, Razor.
You've been back a couple of days then from Milan. Just before we look ahead to Sheffield United, what are your reflections on how well it went for you in midweek?
I thought it was a great result. I felt that afterwards. I still feel that now. I don't think it's underestimated by us internally how good that result was. Really tough place to go. Champions League semi-finalists last year, Milan. So a hostile atmosphere. I thought their supporters were very good for them. Really backed them and made it difficult for us. But the lads showed great mental strength, resilience, resolute display. Delighted with another clean sheet. So lots of positives.
You've had plenty of midweek football yourself as a player and as a manager, but European midweek football is obviously different, and it's the first such fixture for you this season. So maybe it's hard to judge, but how have you managed the schedule? What sort of changes have you had to make this week to fit it in between two big Premier League fixtures?
Yeah, I don't think it's been dramatically different. Of course, the travelling was, but I think in terms of how we prepared, definitely a little bit more delegation from my respect to my staff. Apart from that, I don't think too much changes. We're trying to be smart with our time in between games. I think we have to be clever, especially the demand on the players is so big, mentally and physically. We've got to get that balance right for them, really.
One player that you brought back into your team the other night, someone we haven't seen a lot of this season, Jacob Murphy, and obviously that's a big call in a huge game to play him, but I guess it underlines just what an important player he's been for you and continues to be.
Yeah, Jacob, I thought was magnificent for us last year, never let us down, always contributed. I think the big thing for me is he's very, very reliable. You know what you're going to get from him. Defensively, he's very good. Of course, he's got obviously attacking threats as well. I thought he did a really good job for the team.
Have you seen the video clip of him when he's lining up with the Champions League music playing and almost overwhelmed by it? Have you seen that?
I have seen it. I was sent it, yeah. I don't know if overwhelmed. I think I'd like to look at it another way, sampling, taking everything in and enjoying his moment, and quite rightly so. For a lot of our players, that would be a milestone in their career, really, and I think Jacob was savouring the moment.
Looking ahead to Sunday in Sheffield United, what sort of match are you expecting from them?
A difficult game. I think Bramall Lane is a very tough place to go any time of the year. Yeah, a good team, a direct team. Will ask us questions physically. Got good athleticism in their team. Counter-attacking team as well. So set plays, they're very strong. So yeah, they've got lots of areas of their team that can hurt us if we're not right. So I think the big challenge for us is to mentally approach the game as we did the Brentford match, where we were spot on in our mindset. We were spot on with the importance of the game, and we responded really well with maybe not a magnificent display, but we did enough to get the job done, and we're going to have to get all the basics right if we're going to compete in this game.
Thank you.
Keith? Eddie, I wonder how Sandros been after the week, because he obviously spoke to us in the build-up to the game. He said he was expecting a very emotional day. How has he dealt with everything that's kind of been thrown his way? Because there were a lot of eyes on him over there in Italy.
Yeah, there were, and I think it's worth remembering he's still a young player, you know, and I was so pleased for him, the reaction he got from the Milan fans. That's, I think, a mark of a few things, really. How Sandro conducted himself in Milan, how good a player he is, recognition from a group of supporters that he'd given everything for the club. So I think great things for Sandro, but also great things for us, because it's a marker of what bigger talent he is, really. It would have been an emotional game for him. It would have been a difficult night for him, I've got no doubt. But I thought he handled himself really well. And he's probably, without speaking to him about it, I think he's probably pleased the game's out the way, and he can focus now on the rest of the season with us.
And Nick Pope was man of the match the other night. Some brilliant saves, looked at his very, very best. Do you think he was at all affected by being left out of the England squad, and do you think that is something that he's maybe answered the other night with that display?
It's a difficult one for me to comment on behalf of Nick. All I would say is whenever I've seen Nick play, I'd say a highly motivated individually. He always wants to train. He always puts himself forward to do more because he wants to maximise every moment in his career. So I'd say he's highly driven, great professional. His last two displays I think have been very, very good. I think that's the Nick that we saw for the majority of last season. And he's a difference maker. When he plays like that, he transformed our back line really. He gives everyone confidence. And not just with the saves as well, how he distributed the ball in both games I thought was very good too. So delighted with it. How
are you looking team news wise for the trip to Sheffield?
We're still missing two Joes in midfield. Seem to have had memory loss there. But I think we're apart from that we're pretty good.
Yeah. Callum, is Callum back to full fitness? Is he okay now? Yeah.
Yeah, with Callum we always have to manage his load. That doesn't change whether it's a single game week or a 3-game week. We have to monitor his training. We have to make sure we give ourselves the best chance and Callum the best chance of staying fit through the season. So that's what we'll do.
And with the two Joes, are you looking for both of them probably after the international break? Or?
Well, we hope with Joe Linton that he could possibly be back sooner, but we'll wait and see. With Willock, yeah, he'll definitely be after the international break.
Morning, Eddie. Crazy few days, of course, but what do you think long term for you personally will stick in the memory from that first Champions League trip?
I don't think there's one moment. I think it's the whole experience in general. Really, I think the few things obviously stick out. The support we had from our supporters out there was incredible. When you see them out in Milan and then you see them in the stadium and the noise they created, albeit a very small group of people in a huge stadium, they made a difference, and their support definitely lifted us. And then seeing them at the end, the reaction they gave the players, I think they left us in those certain terms that they were proud of the effort that we'd given. Of course, the whole occasion for the players, for them to experience that, and I think we'd be better for it. And I think that's the key thing. I think that's a great thing to get out the way, and hopefully we'll adjust to the rigours that the Champions League brings.
Reza mentioned it earlier about that clip of Jacob Murphy. I just wondered how it felt for you as a manager to know that your players are out there kind of realising the dreams, I suppose, from boyhood fans of a club like Jacob.
Yeah, amazing moment for a lot of the players. Some of the players have played in the competition before, will have that experience. It will be more, they'll be used to the demands that the Europe brings, but for the ones that haven't, and that would have been I'm sure a dream throughout their career, can I get to that level? Can I play in those games? So it would be a massive milestone, as I said earlier, for a lot of the players, and that's a great thing for us as a football club to be able to give them that platform. And then, of course, their job is to try and excel on that stage and make the difference. So that's why I think the game's a really good one for us to get out the way, and really then trying to focus on winning games and trying to make the difference in that tournament. And I think it was a really good start to get that point.
I think Nick said afterwards it's about kind of improving Newcastle United at this new level. So what do you as a manager take from the Champions League and know that you can apply that to Premier League for?
Well, I think you're going up against the very best in Europe, and there'll be tactical tweaks, there'll be in-game moments where we have to improve, and that I'm sure that will help us in the Premier League. I'm sure that will help our self-esteem and our confidence in the group. We've made changes to the team, and we'll continue to make changes to the team as we go through this season. We have to, and then we'll know the real depth that we have in the squad. But I think the early signs are positive.
How much do you think the midfield's missed Sean Longstaff, would you say?
Yeah, I think Sean's got unique qualities. He's got first and foremost, he's got a really good brain. So he understands what we want the midfield to do, how we want it to look. I think he's got an incredible ability as well off both feet. He breaks lines. He's a very positive passer of the ball. And his engine, his engine can't be underestimated. He covers every blade. He's very good in transitions. So I think all round he's a very, very good player. So yeah, he's a vital part of our midfield.
Just finally from me on Sheffield United, what have you made from them on their return to the Premier League so far this season? You talk about them being quite a direct side. What challenges are they going to pose?
Well, I just think they're going to pose challenges in respect that they're very well organised. Paul Heckingbottom's done a very, very good job. They continue to play with the back three, back five, and that gives you problems in itself. Good athletes, I think they've recruited well. So I think it's a game where if we drop our levels psychologically, because we're the games that we've had this week, and emotionally we can't raise ourselves again, these games become very difficult.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you.
Dawn?
You mentioned that it was a milestone game in Milan for many of the players, but also a milestone for you in your career. Is that how you see it?
Not really, no. I think the speed of the games, the turnaround of the games, I think it'll be one, I've said this before, it'll be one of those games I look back on at the end of my career and go, well, that was a milestone game. That was a big moment for me. But I think when you're in it and you're living it and you're trying to succeed, the game just becomes about trying to find ways to win.
It was quite noticeable watching on TV anyway, that you were a bit more animated in the Champions League game than perhaps you are in a normal Premier League game. It was interesting because it was different.
Well, yeah, it was definitely no intention on my side to be more or less demonstrative in terms of my actions. Whether it's a Premier League game or Champions League game, I want to win every game the same. There's no difference. I think sometimes you feel your players need you more or less, depending on the game and how the game's going. I certainly didn't feel that, but maybe you might tell me differently.
Yeah, and finally, you mentioned it at the end of the answer just now. We've seen many teams over the years go from Champions League to Premier League, perhaps playing a team that are struggling at the bottom and then not do so well, because it's quite difficult to adjust mentally from playing in such a high-profile game to playing in a game that might be perceived to be against a team of lesser quality. It's getting that consistency of approach, isn't it, that's so important.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, but I don't think it's necessarily related to that. I think if we didn't have a European game, this game would still be very difficult, regardless of the emotion that we've given to the game in midweek. But add that in, it becomes even more difficult. So, yeah, we have to deal with all those things. That's where we are.
Just finally from me, in terms of, you've got Champions League, you've got Premier League, you've got Cup, and then, another tough Premier League game. How much are you going to have to rotate the squad?
We are going to have to rotate the squad, yeah, no doubt about that. We're not going to be able to play the same 11 players every week. We don't want to make necessarily, if we can't help it, wholesale changes to the team in any one game, ideally. We don't want to be making 11 changes to the team. I don't think that's going to do our rhythm any good. I don't think that's going to help us. But tweaks as we're going along, hopefully the team then becomes unaffected, but we manage to keep everybody fresh.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn. Simon?
Yeah, okay. On Tonali, we probably not seen the best of him yet, which is kind of understandable because he's settling in a new country and language. What do you want him to do to improve, and can you get the best out of him?
Yeah, I've got no doubt we can get the best out of him. I think we've already seen that in the short period of time that he's been here. His performance against Aston Villa was high level. I think there's no surprise that performance against Aston Villa came when he was with us for pre-season, which is 4 and a bit weeks of intense work, getting to know his teammates. I think since then he's hardly trained with us. International injury. I think he's had one training session in near enough a month, which will then give you a clue that's tough for any new player transitioning into a team. I think you need to train regularly, but he's adapting really well. As I said earlier, he's an incredible personality. He's very stable, committed to the project here, and I think he'll grow as time goes on.
Yeah, one of the key relationships in that midfield is how he plays with Bruno and how you can get them to complement each other. Is that partnership that can work, or are they quite similar and probably maybe want to play in each other's positions?
Yeah, no, I get the point, but no, they can definitely play with each other. They're two top level players with very similar brains, so I've got no problem with that. But yeah, making sure that both players fit into the team structure and our midfield is functioning is a big part of our success.
Thank you.
Lee?
And you flew straight back after the game. Obviously, do you feel you've had enough time to prepare for this Sheffield United game?
Yeah, no, I feel we'll have enough time to prepare. Of course, it's new for us in the sense that I don't think anyone can measure emotionally what that game took out of the players. That's the difficulty. Physically, we can measure it, but it's the emotion that goes with it. But it's our job to recover, and then make sure we're ready for another tough test. And I think that's what the Champions League brings. It's increased competition. It's a lot of exposure, and then you've got to come back, and then you've got to perform again. The consistency of our work and our performances is going to be a true testament, really, to how well we're going to do this year.
I mean, how many sessions do you need for a game like this, and how many have you actually had? Did you train yesterday?
Yeah, the players were in yesterday. I wouldn't say we trained because physically we probably can't train at the moment. That would be a negative if you take more energy out of the players. Obviously, a group of players did, but the ones that started the game didn't. We probably won't train fully before the game. We will be training, but not at our maximum level.
And just on Livramento and Lewis Howe, I've seen a lot of those players yet. I mean, obviously didn't come here to sit and watch. When do you think we're going to see them on the pitch?
Well, you will see them on the pitch.
Yeah.
When, I'm not sure. I'll always pick a team that I think gives us the best chance of winning. Tino's training very well, really, really good, but he's fighting with Kieran, who's been outstanding for us this season. So, but Tino we see being a huge part of our future, and it's the same with Lewis. Lewis has come having played no minutes during pre-season. He's an outstanding prospect. Again, he's training really well, but we're building him up, and again, he's competing for that starting spot.
Jordan?
Just from Tuesday, why wasn't Wanda back on squad? Is there an issue there?
He was feeling unwell.
Okay. And on Sunday as well, do you have to bear in mind the physical efforts given against AC Milan and the football against Manchester City when you talk about when you look to pick a team on Sunday?
Well, yeah, the priority is always the next game, so Manchester City waits, but I think we will look at everybody's physical well-being and try and pick the best team to win, taking everything to account that we can measure, as I said. We'll possibly make changes to the team, but we don't want to make too many changes to the team then where we lose our rhythm and we become a different team. So yeah, it's a really delicate balance for us.
Craig?
Morning, a stat I came across this week that actually really surprised me, which suggests he still is playing well, but Alexander Isak has only scored in one of his last 12 appearances for Newcastle. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think sometimes stats can be a little bit misleading. I think Alex is, I look at his last performance against AC Milan, I thought there was so much good from him. I think he linked play really well for us. I think as a team we probably didn't click in the final third. That's pretty obvious from the game. He has been feeling his knee slightly in the last few weeks, so he's had a sort of an ongoing knee issue that we've been trying to manage. So I'm really pleased with him. I think he's an outstanding talent, and of course, yes, he'll want to score, and we want him to score. But as long as the team's performing well, that's the main thing.
This is a question from last season, almost we asked a lot of you, but the idea of Alex and Callum being on the pitch together and Alex going out wide, is that something which you could look at going forward? Because you said there, you didn't click in the final third. Are you looking at different options to get them both on the pitch, perhaps, or not?
Yeah, of course, we'll always look at it, and Alex did go to the left when Callum came on the pitch, and I know Alex can play that position really well. Sometimes in a game it's nice to even rotate him when he started as a 9, but rotate him in running, because I think he's got that ability to drift left, and say if he's gone quiet in a game for a period of time, might just spark to life in another area. So we'll always look at it, but I do think we have to always pick what's best for the team, not necessarily what's best for the individuals. And sometimes you can put your perceived best players into the team, but the team doesn't function as well. So that we love both players, and we'll always try and make the best call for the team.
Just quickly on Sandro as well, to go back to Simon's point. Going forward, what do you see as Sandro's best position and best role? What type of player do you want him to be within your midfield?
I want him to be himself, which is an outstanding technician, very good athlete. For me, he can play all the positions in midfield, but we need to give him time well, I don't think we can judge him, and I said this with all signings, don't think you can judge signings in a month. I think that let's take our time. I'm very patient because I know the quality of the player that we have.
Luke?
Eddie, we're sort of taking in the reactions to that result in Italy. 20 months ago, you were fighting a relegation battle to stay in the Premier League, and so were some of these players. Is that context always going to be key?
Yeah, I think my job is to always protect the players externally. I think we need to understand the journey that we've been on, and to judge them too harshly at this stage, I think would be a big negative. And as I say, it's my job then to bring that perspective. So I think a lot of the players have just been, for me, magnificent for this football club for the last, well, I can only speak for my time since I've come here. As you say, the fight to stay in the Premier League was a real one, and we did, I think, really well to complete that objective. And then last year was last year, where it was just a season where we continued to be very consistent and totally new challenge this year. With largely, obviously we've made transfers, but largely the same group of players. So I think I want to, as I said before, I want to try and take the pressure off them. I want them to play at their best level. So I think that perspective is really important.
People see problems, and perhaps we're guilty of it in the media, problems have been in Europe. We see maybe the negative stuff. We're talking about the travel, we're talking about the extra games, we're talking about the lack of preparation. Do you see solutions to those problems? Do you see them as problems, or do you just see them as opportunities and challenges to be well excelled in, really? Yeah,
I see them. I don't necessarily see it as an opportunity. Europe's an opportunity, definitely, to do some amazing things, hopefully. But the things you're talking about are challenges. You know, the travel, the games, that's all new to us, and we're going to have to find solutions to them. But I back us to do that. We've got the experience in-house to manage that. We've got the players to do it. But of course, the results are really what will define that.
And a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about 3 successive defeats in the league. Suddenly, football moves so quickly. You go to Sheffield United at the weekend, you win at home, you get a brilliant point away from home in the Champions League. You've got a chance to turn this into a really good block of 3 games. Yeah, that's why this game on Sunday is so important for us. We know that we're still very early in the season. The league is forming, opinions are forming, momentum's forming, and we want to be on the right end of that. We knew the season was a very difficult start for us. We knew it was always going to be. So this period now, with the Carabao Cup game coming up and the games we have before the next international break, is an actual crucial period, and that's why this game on Sunday, we know the importance of it. Thank you.
Dominic?
Just on Sandros Tonali again, had it not been for the injuries of Sean Longstaff and Joe Willock in pre-season or over the summer, would you have potentially looked to ease him into the side more than you have done?
That's very difficult to sort of say that. I think my preference with new signings is always to, it depends if obviously if there's a necessity for them to play straight away, then obviously you play them, but my preference is always to give them a look at everything first, whether that's training, whether that's how the team functions, whether that's their environment. I think that's the best way to get long-term success, and not to judge the player too early, regardless of who it is. I'm not talking about anyone in particular here, but to give them time to grow into the team. And as I say, that gives you the best chance of long-term success, in my opinion.
Yeah. Just on a different subject, announced a new deal for Callum Wilson last week after the press conference. Are there any other deals in the pipeline for us?
No, not that I know of, no.
Hi, Eddie.
Hey.
Is it your biggest challenge now to prepare your players, you and your staff, for a Saturday return to Premier League action after midweek Champions League?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big moment for us, as I said earlier. I think the preparing for games in a short period of time, we're used to that. I've done that all my career. I managed in the Championship. You know, that's absolutely relentless. Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, the whole season near enough. I think it's more, as I said earlier, it's more the emotion for the players is the thing you can't measure, and that's the thing we have to always take into account.
Oscar?
Eddie, there's obviously a lot of talk about the midfield balance. Are you lacking an out-and-out holding midfielder in there?
Not in my opinion, no.
No. You didn't want to sign one in the summer. There was no issues over there.
Well, in my opinion, I've got 3 players that can play that position, so I wouldn't want to add a 4th.
Is the midfield working as you'd like right now?
I think the midfield is, as with all areas of the team, that there's areas for improvement. But as I said, for me, I'd always say that regardless of whether the team's performing at what I consider close to its maximum, there's a constant need to improve daily, in my opinion. The midfield will be no different to the back 4, to the front areas. What I do know is we've got some top players in there, some really, really good players. We're missing the 2 Joes, as I said earlier, because they bring something different and they give us the ability to maybe at this stage rotate more in that area. But we've seen with Elliott's emergence the last few weeks how well he's done. So he's added another dynamic. So I think our midfield's really strong.
Kieran?
How much more do you think is there to come from this team, and what would it take to get to those levels maybe we saw last season at times?
Well, I think it always goes in phases, and I think, I think the level or the potential for the team, for the squad is high. But I think confidence is such an easy word to use, but it's such a difficult thing sometimes to find. Hopefully, the last 2 results would have given us that missing ingredient back. So we needed a win. Going into the Brentford game, we were determined to try and break the run of results we'd had. We did that. We then got a huge point against Milan with a really good defensive display. So hopefully that platform can then reignite our A game, because we know that there's, as I said, after the Milan game, we know there's growth in that performance. We know we can improve. But it's only by getting good results sometimes that comes.
Obviously, teams have a body of work to look at, like Europe can look at them. Do you have to almost become more unpredictable sometimes as well? You have to constantly evolve. Do you feel teams are more clued up maybe? Or?
Yeah, I think you definitely have to constantly evolve. But I think the speed of which you evolve, sometimes you've got to be careful that you don't lose your core strength. So we will, and we always have done, continually tweak things that we think will make us better. I don't think we're at a stage where we're predictable. I don't think we're at the stage where we've become easy to play against. That, not in my opinion. But yeah, you always have to constantly have an eye on that, for sure.
Jason?
You're saying about the emotional kind of impacts of Tuesday. It's difficult to kind of assess that. Are there ways that you can try and do that? Do you sit down with the players? Do you have a word with the senior players to keep an eye on the younger players on that front?
Yeah, we'll always enter in conversations, and we'll do as much as we can in terms of trying to find the answers to certain things. But players will always want to play. That's an unwritten thing, you know. Players, if you ask them if they're tired, they'll always say no, because everyone wants to play every minute of every game, which is a great thing. And you know, sometimes that can't be underestimated, how keen the players are here to succeed. But it's our job as the staff to, as I say, always make the right decision, or try and make the right decision with the facts we have in front of us.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
If you want Sundays, no one's mentioned it.
Just a couple
Yeah.
quick ones.
Yeah.
Thought you'd ended it there, Lee.
I was trying to.
It was Kieran Trippier's 33rd birthday on Tuesday night. He was up against Rafael, arguably Newcastle's best outfield player. Was that proof that there's life and a lot of legs left in him yet, that performance?
Yeah, I thought Trips was, as you say, absolutely magnificent against a very, very difficult opponent. But I think he's been very good at the start of this season, Trips. I think he's come up against some very difficult opponents. And defensively, I think he's been spot on. I think with the ball, I mean, the way he used the ball against Milan was very, very good. So delighted with him, and delighted with his leadership skills as well. How he used his experience to help his teammates around him, and he was part of a very good defensive display.
Has he said anything to Iwobi with a smile about spending £30 million on his successor?
Sorry, say it again.
Has he said anything, even jokingly, about spending £30 million on a right back? Has that sort of spurred him on, do you think? Or
no, not had a conversation with. I think that Kieran's been in the game long enough. He understands dynamics of the game. We need a strong squad. We can't be overly reliant on one player. If that one player gets injured, and then the team suffers. So I think no, he understands that, and I think that competition, although he doesn't need it, he showed that last year. Although we've had very good players supporting him in that position, he showed last year he didn't need that to produce his best form.
Lee?
Eddie, just one quick one on the goalkeeping sort of coaching staff. That clean sheet would have been a special moment for them. We don't ask much about them and they don't get much of a mention, but do you want to just give us a little tribute to them for their hard work?
Yeah, I mean all the staff and the goalkeeping staff obviously have a key role with the goalkeepers, and they've got a good goalkeeping team, and Schwan and Adam do sterling work with us, very committed, hard working. Actually got quite a big pool of goalkeepers now, because the younger goalkeepers have come up, and it's great to see them work. I think it's high level work that they do, and they take great pride in not just Nick's performances but all of the goalkeeping team that we have, and you know, the whole coaching staff we have here I think is really strong, and hopefully the players get what they need.
Eddie, just quickly, there aren't going to be any contract extensions announced today, are there? After the press conference?
I get your tongue-in-cheek remark. Look, I don't believe so, but hey, no, who knows?